Welcome to Conversations on God, my friend David. David, I was thinking about just what I'm going through. Maybe we could segue just my own life events. Uh, I've been I've been on the spiritual path, whatever that is, for a long time, just trying to figure out God and figure out myself and try to be happy and trying to be a good boy or try to be a bad boy. I tried to be a bad boy for a while too. That didn't work as well. Um, but all these things. And lately, I am embracing the the path of devotion versus the path of knowledge, because that the path of knowledge is just like I feel like as my understanding grew, I just it's like it was more difficult just to be happy, even though I was trying to ignore not being happy, just knowing that it's an illusion and that whole deal. But I'm just kind of like, this guy sucks. So this path of devotion, just loving people the best I can and seeing everyone as God and seeing everyone as love. And um it feels better. And in that path, it just reminds me of all the things that you shouldn't do on some of these other paths that people have tried and I've tried. Like there's nothing that you can or cannot do. There's nothing bad or even like necessarily inherently good. Any activity as a human. So I guess my question for you or my topic to talk about is what's the best way to be happy on the the path of devotion?
Hmm. Best way to be happy. Well, if you're on the path of devotion, then I think you're automatically happier. But it's really your experience reflects my experience. I mean, I
And maybe define those. I don't even know if I define what that even means.
well, so I was seeking God and seeking the answers since I was a child. It just was questions that were driving me nuts. And I went the pretty standard, fairly standard routes. Um, But I think it really wasn't until that I found this teacher, my current teacher, that it really started to click. And I think the big difference was shifting from a path of wisdom or or of the mind to the path of the heart.
Hmm. That's what I
And
meant to say. I don't know what I said,
yeah,
but that's what I meant to say.
yeah, so my teacher calls it path of devotion, and which would be the path of heart, and the
Hmm.
path of wisdom, which is it's primarily path of the mind.
Hmm.
And I'd said many times that he talked about that the path of wisdom is a tough one. It's a really hard path. It's a hard path. Uh, Requires exceptional amounts of discipline, and it's very easy to slip and fall quite a long ways. So I think one of the and one is thinking about God and how all this works, as opposed to just cranking up your love for all beings. And I think one of the most powerful ways to do that is to remember that this is all God. All
Hmm.
beings are manifestation of the one creator. It's you could say each being is a piece of himself. So I think that's one of the ways to use the mind for me on the path of devotion is to contemplate the oneness of all things, that this is all God. There's nothing that exists outside of God. And if you have any type of love for God, right, then you can begin to extend that love to all his different manifestations, right? And if you don't have any love for God, that's fine. You got to love something. So maybe you had an amazing mom and you just loved your mom, just loved your mom. Well, then understand that your mom is an extension of the creator. That your mom's love is a piece, a small sliver of the creator's love for you, right? So if you love your mom, then you can realize that your mom is a piece of the creator, that the creator is loving you as your mom. So then you can begin to then start feeling more love for the creator. It's like, wow, the creator just loved me as my mom my whole life and took such good
Mhm.
care of me. Right. So then that develops a little more understanding, a little more feel for the creator. And now you realize, well, all my friends that love me and take care of me, they're pieces of the creator. Right. My dog that just loves me like crazy, that's a piece of the creator. So you can begin to expand your feeling for the creator, either directly if you have a natural feel for the creator, or reversing of people that have loved you and treated you well. Or
Mhm.
conversely, you can look at the beauty. Let's just say you just love being out in nature and you just feel this sacredness of being out in nature and the stars and the moon, and you feel that. You just feel that. Well, just understand that the all of creation is an expression of the creator. It's a piece of the creator, but an expression of the creator. So that love you feel for this beauty, this feeling you have, that's a piece of the creator. So you can either work it directly if you feel there's some sort of love, and and if you don't feel any love for God directly, that's fine, because
Mhm.
for most people it's kind of an abstract concept. It's like if me describing uh, uh, your perfect wife, if you weren't married, let's not get you in trouble.
If
And I had to describe her so well. Well, if I just say, okay, there's a perfect wife out there for you somewhere, well, that doesn't mean anything for you. But if
right.
I say, she's got that compassion, the most compassionate person you ever met, and she's just beautiful, the most beautiful girl you ever seen, and she's funny, one of the most funny people. Now you can start get a feel for it. You can start to relate to that as a human, right? So for people, that just hear about God, sometimes I think we have a innate feeling from previous lifetimes where you're just born with a feeling of the moment somebody tells you about the God and the creator, you just kind of just feel something about that. That's from a previous life.
Mm.
So then you work from there. I mean, so wherever you're at is fine. Uh, but the biggest difference between the path of wisdom and the path of devotion is the path of devotion is basically building that feeling of love in your heart eventually for the creator of all things, and realizing that the beautiful things you've seen in your life is the extension of the creator. The love that you've had from people that love you is that's the creator loving you as your friends and as your parents. So you just kind of build it up from that. And then, once you start to have that feeling, then realize that you yourself are a piece of the creator. That feeling you've had your whole life of when you do something good, that feeling of gladness in your heart when you've done something good and kind. That's
Mhm.
because you are a piece of the creator, and that energy within you resonates with loving actions.
Well, let me tell you where I derail
Okay.
because I practice these kind of things, and I will disclose as soon as earlier today. So I'm driving along, and there's some traffic, and I'm going to turn left, and I turn left when someone right behind me wants to also turn left and zoom past me, right? And so I block them, and they honk at me,
Right.
and I take great offense at being honked at. Honked at. How
Right.
dare they honk at
Me
me?
too. Me
And
too.
so, because I'm such a spiritual giant, I
Yeah.
don't yell at them or flip them off or anything. But what I do is I coolly look at them as they look at me, and maybe even give them a wave because I know how infuriating that can be to have someone going like,
Sure.
ah, when
Sure.
they piss you off. And so, in that moment, I'm not loving that person, even though I literally was practicing trying to love everything. Like I'm looking for people that I can give food to or something, like what can I do in love right now? And then I get derailed by uh someone like projecting their whatever their anger or whatever onto me. So in those moments though, the thing that helps me is I always revert back to it seems like this mind thing. It's the path of wisdom. I derail off the path of the heart and I'll kind of talk myself off the ledge of, hey, this anger that this lady has given me, it's really a projection of my own anger. It's inside of the ultimate version of me, this part of me that's God, that's making this whole thing up. And so there's really nothing to forgive. I'm just forgiving my own illusion of what's going on. I don't know what's going on with her, like that kind of thing, which it seems like that's kind of more of the path of wisdom. Uh, eh,
Well, I don't know if at this point that any of us can practice purely any one path. I think it's you have a predominance. So, if you, first of all, if you've been practicing the path of wisdom or intellectualizing the spiritual path for this lifetime, the entire lifetime, and probably many, many, many lifetimes, and now you're practicing the path of devotion, oh, you haven't mastered it in these 3 months that you,
yes, that's a good synopsis.
how retarded of you not to be able to have mastered the path of devotion
That's what
in
I was
three
thinking.
months. Yeah, so I mean,
3 months is not enough. Is that what you're saying?
well, 3 months is a start, right? 3 months is a start. So I mean, there's that, and then there's the other aspect of I use my mind when I get knocked off that feeling of love and feeling of this God. So I'll give you some examples. Um, so I'm practicing just holding a loving state of being. And I have some patients that come in that are just very, very lovable. And then
Mhm.
it's easy. It's like, here's my creator coming as this delightful person. And it's just, I'm having a wonderful time. And let me see what I can do to be of some service.
Yes, I
And
get
then
it.
some people just are really, really hard to love. Sometimes they're
Right.
really
What,
hard to even like.
am I in one of those categories stronger than the
No,
other?
no, yeah, you're pretty charming. You're pretty, except when you happen to throw me down when we're practicing martial arts, and I have to talk myself down not to
I understand that.
stand up and just smash into the ground. But so what do I do when that's what's really, really hard to like? I can't force myself to like them, so I start to talk to myself. And one of the most powerful things I can say to myself is, this too is God. This is a perfect manifestation. This particular personality is a unique personality, a part of God's desire to explore every possibility of beingness.
Yeah.
So I mean that helps me a lot. It's like, yeah, it's so quirky in this person's own way, and this is God. This too is God, right? So I'm using my mind, but I'm using my mind to redirect my heart, right? It's like the technique, the A to B. You
Hmm.
start by using your mind to raise sacred feelings, and then once you raise the sacred feelings, then you drop the mind off again. So it's the same thing with in the early stages. And by early stages of the path of devotion, maybe it's the first 1,000 lifetimes of practicing it. In the early stages, you have to use your mind to direct your heart. But one of the most powerful, it's like the A to B. A to B, once you start to feel the sacred feelings of love or expansion or infinite consciousness, then you quit talking and just slide into that beingness. So it's the same thing. If somebody's just really just annoying as hell, right? I can't just love them if it's not there, if it's not being drawn from me, right? So I use my mind to remind myself of the reality of this being in front of me, which is this is a unique piece of God that was
Mm.
needed or it wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Right. And so then after I hit on the uh the rationalization or the discussion with myself that works, and I start to then feel some love
Wasn't it the
or
same as what your teacher had always had talked about how concepts can help you shift? Like concept, right? This
yeah,
idea.
well, concepts are a huge part of it,
Isn't
huge part.
that basically using the mind though, like
Sure,
to
sure.
re
So, but so I
look
think
at
the
things?
difference is if you're primarily in the path of wisdom, you just shift your concepts, but you don't necessarily bring your heart along with it.
Hmm.
Whereas the path of devotion uses the concepts to activate the heart.
Hmm.
And then once the heart's activated, then you can drop your thinking again and just love.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, but part of the concept is when somebody cuts you off and flips you off, one of the best things that worked for me is just remember that's God tweaking you,
Hmm.
testing you a little bit. So that calms me down. That's the first stage of calming down, that this too is God and this is perfect. And I have to I hit it from enough angles that I begin to shift my heart back into that peaceful, loving state. Now, sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes something may happen that you might have to work really, really hard. You might have to work. I told you I had two of friends that were friends of mine for like 20 years that they did things that I felt God was saying they violated the friendship agreement. It's time to end this relationship. But it took me probably 7 to 10 years to get over that feeling of hurt and resentment in my heart, where I could just feel love for them again. It wasn't easy. It was really, really hard. But I mean, when you can shift love back to areas that are very, very hard for you, then everything else becomes a piece of cake.
Hmm.
So you have to understand that that once again is God giving you a catalyst, which is uh, to me brings me, how much time do we have? Brings me to what I consider now the third part of this series of my teachers, a summation of my teachers' teaching to the best of my understanding. Is the one is learning to shift into a higher vibrational state. Then you help keep it by learning to shift your concept of reality that allows you to take things that normally would knock your vibrational state down, shift it to either neutral or positive, that this too is God and perfect. So those first two things will allow you to shift into a higher vibrational state. So now you're hopefully walking around with a higher vibrational state most of the time, which feels like greater peace, greater joy, better sense of humor, more compassion. You just feel that presence of God within you and around you more and more and more as this greater peace, love, and joy, right?
Hmm.
Then the third part of it is uh, what I was referring to before as instrument flying, right? Instrument flying refers to in a jet or airplane, you don't need to look out the window to orient yourself. You can look at the instruments and know where you are in space. You can travel through storms or nighttime and still arrive at the airport you're trying to get to and land, right? So to me, the instrument flying is once you start to learn to hold a higher vibrational state, you get kind of used to it because it feels stinking good, right? You have more peace, you have more joy, you have more love, you got a greater sense of humor, right? You're just a better human being, and it just feels a heck of a lot better than living as a normal human being, right? So that's now becomes your instruments. It's telling you your altitude and your direction, and you. But now all of a sudden something happens where that all drops, right? So your instruments, your feelings, that starts to go away, whether it's be somebody cutting you off or whatever happens that drops that altitude that you're flying at and interferes with the direction you're heading. So we'll say altitude is high vibration, direction is you keep moving direction of awakening more and more and more to who you truly are and what reality is. Okay. So when something knocks you off that, right? Let's just say, keep with the plane analogy. It's like, oh, we hit the jet stream, so we got to compensate for that. Or we hit a storm front, and that pressure changed the effect on the plane. So in the human analogy, you correct for it. You correct for it as a pilot. You correct for it. Okay, you change the power of the engines, or the change the flaps, change the direction. So as a human being, you got to ask yourself, and this is what the law of one refers to as discipline of the personality, and Hidden Hand talks about working on the self. It's the same thing. You ask yourself, well, what did I just judge? And you correct it. And it could be a judgment of that particular situation, or it could be a judgment in general, right? So let's just do something non-controversial. You see a pit bull, and you become fearful, right? You become fearful, and it's like, well, not all pit bulls are dangerous, and they're still pieces of God. I have to act appropriately, and maybe be a dangerous pit bull, but I can't just be afraid of all pit bulls. Being cautious is wise. I'll be cautious, but I won't be afraid. This might be just a beautiful, amazing animal. It might be a dangerous animal. So let me act appropriately until I determine that, right? So when it comes to your life, many times we have generalized principles. Oh, this particular race, I don't trust, or this type of person that looks a certain way, I have these feelings about, right? So many times we've generalized rules in an earlier part of our life that now is just on automatic. But if the judgment is less than God, so in other words, the perfect judgment is, this too is God imperfect, because that does not drop your vibrational state at all. So any judgment less than that begins to drop your vibrational state. So it's a time to what it is your subconscious patterns. The creator set it up so your subconscious patterns will now be brought to your conscious mind, giving you a chance to clean up some of those old programs.
Mm-hmm.
So you begin to clean up these old programs. You're no longer walking around and just reacting unconsciously. You are becoming a master. My teacher had a saying. He goes, master your mind and become a mastermind. And what he's saying is, once you hit a certain level, now you can begin to become aware of your subconscious programming, and now begin to clean them up. So you had made generalizations about whatever at a certain part of your life. Maybe I'm scared to death of water, right? It's like, okay, well, then think about, well, why am I scared to death? Well, because I almost drowned as a kid. Well, all right, let's get over it. Either just realize, yeah, I don't have to be afraid of water. I have to just be cautious, or maybe I'll learn how to swim, or whatever. You begin to clean house. You begin to master your mind and become a mastermind. So this is then the third part of this program. So first, you're learning to tap into higher vibrational states, and then you learn to be able to hold on to them longer and longer by shifting your viewpoints, or changing your judgment of the stimulus in your life. And then the third part is becoming more and more aware when you shift out of it. Yeah, you shouldn't go through 3 days of being in a bad mood without realizing you're in a bad mood. The moment you start to shift down, you should go, what the heck? What did I just judge that shifted me out of this? And the higher your state. So in other words, the more joyful and happy you are, the more it stinks when you start dropping below that. So rather than being upset by it, realize that is the creator giving you an opportunity to begin to clean up some of these programs that you have embedded into your mind at some point in your existence. And the more you clean them out, then you're going to find you just now that was acting as a anchor, kind of dragging you down. So you start to the example I like is the Goodyear blimp, right? If you ever saw the Goodyear blimp take off or land, it has a whole bunch of ropes. So when it's down on the ground, all the crew brings it out by the ropes and they let go of the ropes and it floats up, just naturally floats up, right? And when it wants to land, it underpowered tries to get low enough where they can grab the ropes and tie it back down again. Well, so these programs are a lot like ropes holding us down. And as you begin to cut away these old judgments that you've generalized, you find it gets easier and easier and easier to hold high frequency states. And the high frequency state, as you cut away the ropes, it just gets higher and higher. And now there's less and less things that are lowering your frequency. So you naturally start drifting up to a higher frequency. Imagine if you truly, truly get to the point where you realize this is all God. Everywhere you look is God, both the pleasant and the unpleasant. It's all you're seeing an aspect of the Creator. I mean, imagine walking around what that day is like to just be seeing this incredible Creator, this incredibly loving, wise, artistic. I mean, look at the sunsets. It's like, my God, what a sense of art this Creator has. Then, I mean, if you ever look at pictures of the cosmos and nebulas and star systems, I mean, it's just incredible. And that's just the electromagnetic spectrum we can see. Did we cut off? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, sorry.
Or is the recording still on?
It's still going.
Oh, okay. So and as you begin to contemplate the magnificence of the Creator, I mean, it just raises your vibration more and more and more. You know, and I think a lot of times people you see that are just really happy people, they just see the beauty in so many things. The beauty in a child's smile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beauty in their tree growing outside their door. Just look at the leaves, look at the flowers on that thing. So I mean, it's you're training your mind. So you're cutting away the negatives more and more, and you're increasing the appreciation of beauty in all things. So that's, my teacher said, master your mind, become a mastermind. So that's the third part of it. So what you're doing, you're on the right track. Just don't get upset when you get knocked off the track. Just stop and consider it. Try to restructure the stimulus coming into your mind where it makes it easier then to feel appreciation and love for whatever happened. And even if you can't move your mind into a positive state, just take it out of the negative state. Right? There'd be times I'd be on the freeway and get cut off, and it's like, all right, I'm all right with that. And then the guy flips me off like I did something. Well, sometimes I've gone into a rage. It took me like an hour to calm myself down. Well, that's a big fail, right? But once again, it's the Creator just giving me a chance to grow, give me a weight that I couldn't quite bench, 1 rep. So, but then you start talking to yourself. You use the mind to remind yourself of a higher truth in whatever way works for you, right? And that's what you got to find. You got to find, it's like trying to be able to forgive my 2 friends that violated our friendship contract. It took me a long time to find some thing I could tell myself that allowed me to let go. It's like forgiveness, right? You can say I forgive, but when you truly forgive, you feel that weight drop off. So saying it's not enough. You have to go deep enough that you feel that energetic shift. So that's what and fortunately God's pretty kind. He doesn't give you just horrible, awful things every day. Maybe sometimes people go through that, but a lot of times it's pretty good most of the time, and then it'll tweak you once in a while. So it's like,
Hmm.
okay, so just do the best you can. But that's the whole thing. You want to then dig into it. What judgment did you have? How can you look at it in a different way that begins to help you then restore back to frequency and then go back to the heart where you're feeling that love again, right?
Hmm.
So you'll shift in and out of it. I think but even Jesus, even Jesus, who in my mind is the master of love, there's times the Bible said where he sighed within himself because his disciples and the crowds were just like so annoying. It's like, dudes, I got to go meditate up on the mountain. I'll meet you in the
Hmm.
next town. so,
Hmm.
so, if Jesus himself had a hard time with it sometimes, then, of course we will too. So the thing is just
Hmm.
pick yourself back up and do the best you can. And you'll find with that um, continued effort, you'll get better and better at it.
Well, and there's we're running out of time here, but there's another level of it too. Just as I'm staying in my heart to love others, that same staying in my heart to love others actually works really well by loving this other thing, like this Javon. Because the real me, the eternal me, isn't Javon, and so I can give Javon a break
Right?
for not
Right.
having it together, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, it goes back to you've got to love yourself. First, love
yeah,
yourself. And
yeah.
part of loving yourself is forgiveness. As you forgive your others, you can forgive yourself. So yeah,
Mhm.
love and forgiveness, and just that's right. And it just grows. It just grows. And as you're more forgiving of yourself and forgiving of others, and more loving of yourself and loving others, you hold higher and higher frequency. You're able to drop off these negative judgments easier and easier, which allows then a higher frequency, which grows your heart even more. You start to feel more and more love for a wider and wider diversity of beings and events.
Mhm.
It's like my daughter, she can work with some of the most god awful kids and just laugh and love them, she calls their what does she call them? Wildness or something. She just loves that high spirit, whereas a lot of people, they're ready to smack them. My daughter gets a huge kick out of their spirit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a tremendous heart that you just start to find lovability in a wider array of beings and events.
Hmm.
So it's just practice, but it gets easier,
That's good. Well, I
right?
guess I'm not gonna learn how to be a concert
Well,
pianist
just be patient with yourself.
in a
Just
day.
just keep at it. That's all. Just keep at it.
You know, a couple more thousand lifetimes. I'll have it
Who
down.
knows? I think it starts to accelerate at some point.
Oh, good.
It starts to accelerate.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That was helpful.
All right, brother.
Mm-mm-mm. One moment.